Where were you then? Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?
Hi, everybody. Welcome inside the Talking Elite Fitness Studios. Sean Woodland, Tommy Marquez. We're going to jump right into it because we have a very special guest today. Our guest, currently starring as Bo Katan Kryze on the Disney Plus show The Mandalorian. She also played Lieutenant Kara Starbuck Thrace on the Sci-Fi Channel's Battlestar Galactica and won a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress for her work on that show in 2005. She starred as Nico Breckenridge on the Netflix series Another Life, Vic Moretti on the A&E and Netflix series Longmire. She had a lead role in the 8th season of 24 as Dana Walsh and had recurring roles on The Flash as Blacksmith and appeared twice as herself on The Big Bang Theory. She has had lead roles in films Halloween Resurrection, White Noise, The Light, Batman Year One, The Haunting in Connecticut 2, Ghosts of Georgia, Sexy Evil Genius, Riddick, Oculus, and Don't Knock Twice. And last, but certainly not least, and I say this until the end because it is still one of my favorite things on her resume, she provides the voice of Bitch Pudding, the foul-mouthed strawberry shortcake parody character on Robot Chicken. She is the official Mandalorian of the show. She is Katee Sackhoff. Katee, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on season 3 of the Mandalorian. I'm sure that has just been an incredible experience for you.
Oh, it's been amazing. You know, I mean, growing up a Star Wars fan, just being in the Clone Wars and the animated show was, to me, already winning. And it's just the character that keeps on giving. I had no idea that this character was going to be what she was. Even when we were negotiating my contract, they didn't tell me what she was going to be this season. So it's just like one of those crazy things when I finally got the scripts like landed in my lap. I just like, my mind was blown. I just completely blown. Yeah, I still pinch myself.
Let's go back to the beginning. How did you, and we can go all the way back to getting the opportunity to voice the character, but how did that come about?
So it's funny that you bring up Bitch Puddin' because it's actually connected in a very way. So I was shooting Battlestar Galactica and Seth Green and the guys over at Robot Chicken asked me to, I think they did like a parody episode with like our characters from Battlestar. And when I was over there, we had some more time in the booth because they purchase you for a certain amount of time. And then they were like, you want to do some more characters for Robot Chicken? And I was like, sure. And that's how Bitch Puddin' came up. And then I think like a few months after that, Dave Filoni is like really good friends with those guys. For those people that don't know, Dave Filoni is like the OG Star Wars guy. Like, you know, he's like the keeper of the gate at this point. And he was creating Clone Wars and the character of Bo Katan. And he asked the guys over at Robot Chicken if I was okay to work with, because he was like, you know, I think when Battlestar came out, everyone, because this is a character that was iconically a man. And Ron Moore just decided he needed to, you know, represent reality in the military. And he just picked a couple characters to turn into women. He didn't give it much thought. I was one of them. And so I think for the longest time after that, I was like, if anybody needed a strong female character that was like, that people thought of as a man, they were like, call Katee Sackhoff. So I think that for this female Mandalorian, I was like right there in Dave's mind of like, oh, we'll call Katee Sackhoff. And he called Matt and Seth, and thankfully I'm not a complete asshole because they said, I was okay to work with, and I got the job. So it pretty much was such a, it was a phone call, and it was only supposed to be like an episode. And Dave and I liked working together so much that she just kept going. It's a long-winded answer. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then obviously, when the opportunity for the live action role shows up, was there ever any doubt that was going to be something you'd naturally be able to take over for that role, or was it like hey, I did this on voice, but maybe there's a gap or they're going somewhere else, or was this something that had been in discussion for a while?
So it never even occurred to me that they were potentially going to bring Bo into this world. And I was at Star Wars Celebration in 2018, and up to this point, she was just the voice. And Mando, I think, had just either started airing or was going to start airing. And I had walked up to Dave Filoni and jokingly sort of like decided to take the piss out of him and be like, hey, my character's still alive and she's a Mandalorian, you know, and I'm available. And I was just joking. And a couple months later, we got a phone call for me to sit down with Jon Favreau. And so I don't think, I'm sure they questioned whether or not they should recast. But, you know, luckily for the last 25 years, I've been playing these type of characters. You know, it's not like I was out doing rom-coms. This is all I've done my whole career. And so I don't think it was that big of a stretch for them to say, do we think Katee can do this? You know, thankfully. And then they gave me the opportunity, which still shocks me.
You mentioned, you know, getting the script for season 3, and I would argue that Bo Katan, not Din Djarin, is the sort of titular character in this whole thing of The Mandalorian. It more referred to your character than him in this 3rd season. You get this script, you're reading through it, and what was it like to you to realize that, man, I'm like the main character this season?
You know, it's funny. On paper, it didn't even occur to me until one of the first ADs kept jokingly calling it the Book of Bo Katan all season.
Oh.
And it was just this sort of joke on set. But what this was, and I think it becomes very clear to people after they've seen the finale, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone because it just came out a couple days ago, or yesterday. But I think what becomes obvious is that this season was to set up the Mandalorian people as a whole so that Din Djarin, Grogu can move forward, do their thing. But what it's done is it has set up a greater story. And we know just from what John and Dave have said that, you know, that Ahsoka, Mandalorian, and Boba Fett go together, that these go together. And so it's one of those things where you have to then look at it as a whole and go, okay, this is obviously setting something up for the future, possibly not even for the next season, possibly not even for this show. But it's setting up something that we're supposed to be aware of, and it's supposed to be in our minds. And that's what this season was about, is sort of giving the audience that hasn't seen Clone Wars a quick recap.
Mm-hmm. And keeping those kind of bigger picture things in mind, the finale just aired, and I'm curious, was because you're going out, you're doing press stuff, you're seeing people. Is it hard to keep all of that plot line in and all the cool details, especially like thinking back to we just watched the finale yesterday, like all of the cool action sequences and the developments in that story?
Yeah, I mean, you know, what I love that Disney has done is, I know you guys were all of a certain age, so we remember event television. You know, we remember running home, getting the TV ready, potentially setting up VCR, and wanting to watch something when it aired because it was the only time you were going to be able to see it. And that has gotten lost with social media and streaming. And I think what Disney has done really well with this show is they've managed to keep some things secret for, you know, the entire off season until it becomes, you know, obvious when people have seen it. I mean, Grogu is a perfect example. Luke is the example of season 2. And I think that is really, really special. So I would never want to take that away from the viewer. And so it's actually quite easy for me to keep secrets. You know, I've been talking about this Wicked knee slide all press tour, and I'm just so glad they didn't cut it out. I mean, it's smaller than it was, but at least it's still there. Like, I don't look like the dum-dum that's been talking about something really cool for 6 months and then it's not there, which happens in this business all the time, right? So, you know, there's been certain things I can't keep in.
So Pedro Pascal kind of has a funny persona on social media. How does that persona compare to what you get on the set?
Pedro's really funny. Pedro's, you know, Saturday Night Live Pedro is Pedro. Like, that is who he is, for sure. He is, you know, he doesn't take himself very seriously, but he takes his craft very seriously. And that's a beautiful combination. And, you know, I enjoy being around him. You know, I've talked about this at length because I think that it's really important to highlight that, you know, Pedro and I are not the only ones in the suits. You know, I mean, this is, you know, it would be a disservice to not talk about, you know, Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne, who play Mando every day and make Mando who he is, and along with Pedro, you know. And then for myself, you know, there's been 3 stunt women in my suit this year, including myself, because what it is you want the characters to be as believable and as awesome as possible. And it's egotistical to think that one person can do that. You're playing superheroes, for God's sakes, you know what I mean? Put the person with that skill set in the suit that day, and that's the person who's going to play them. And so that's what we've done. And so working with Pedro is amazing, but also working with Lateef and Brendan is amazing as well.
And you know, obviously you mentioned that Pedro takes his professions very seriously. So do you. And this is, you know, still technically a job, but, you know, after you get to spend all this time, you know, shooting, recording, getting ready, finally getting to see it play out on the screen and see the edits and everything as the storyline's woven together when it's delivered to the bigger community. What's that like, finally getting to see that finished product, getting to see yourself represented as Bo Katan and getting to see that portrayal?
I mean, it's amazing. It's, you know, I still identify as that like little kid back in, you know, in St. Helens, Oregon, running around and sneaking onto my neighbor's farms so we could play cops and robbers. Like, you know, I've always loved make believe, and the fact that I get to go to work is amazing. And luckily I've been doing this long enough where I can step outside the characters that I play and watch the show for what it is still, and enjoy it. That being said, it's always weird to see what takes they choose and how they cut something together. And, you know, these episodes are really short and we shoot them forever. So it's always so crazy to see it so condensed, and it's never what I think it's going to be. And that's fun. It's fun for me as it is for the audience to sit there and watch something come together, you know?
You spend quite a bit of time, you know, with your face covered by that helmet.
Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome the challenge as an actor of not being able to use facial expressions to, you know, convey certain emotions and things during a scene?
Yeah, it's, you know, what a beautiful challenge to take away an actor's biggest asset. And ask them to, like you said, convey these emotions. And it's not easy. You know, I say it's easier because I don't have to work as hard, jokingly. I think that somebody at one point, you know, you say something and someone grabs onto it on social media, and it just like drives me nuts sometimes when they take you out of context. But, you know, I said that I don't have to work as hard because I don't have to worry about what my face is doing. You know, the hardest part about me playing Bo is that she doesn't move her face that much. She's so stoic, and she's you know, she moves very purposefully, and I am, you know, I talk with my hands, and you know, I mean, I need Botox just to freeze the crap out of my face so it's not moving so much. You know, like it moves so much. And so when I'm in the helmet, I love to just focus on the actual physical movement of it. I think it's so freeing to not have to worry about what my face is doing.
How do you, so you mentioned the physical aspect of it. So what things do you do as an actor physically to make up for the lack of a facial expression? Is there a certain posture that you take, or, you know, how you lean in, or you over exaggerate things? But, you know, what are those tools?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things have to be over exaggerated. You know, it's so funny because you will think that you've done it. You accurately portrayed it in your mind, and then you run behind the monitor to see what it looked like, and you're like, oh dang it, she didn't move at all. Like I didn't see that at all. And you realize you have to go bigger. You have to you know, make sure that the head tilt is big enough, or that if the hand moves that you can see it. And then if the hand moves that you wanted to see it, because sometimes you'll be fidgeting and it becomes so obvious as the character, like, because it's only their hand moving, and so it would draw the audience's attention to just your hand when that's not necessarily where you want their attention to be. So it is one of those things where if you're an actor that doesn't like to watch themselves, this is hard, because you've got to run to the monitor constantly and see what it looks like and what you did, and then also really trust the people around you as well, because sometimes they'll want you to turn your head so much that you're not even looking at anyone. You're like out of the conversation, it seems like. But to the camera, you're looking right at someone. So it's just an odd way of working. And I think any skill set that you can get better at as an actor just helps you on the next job,
Yeah. So you got to voice, obviously, the character before you got to embody the character. Was there anything that you learned from voicing Bo Katan that you were able to sort of carry over into the live action portrayal about how to portray her, or what makes her tick, or what her motivations are?
God, I wish. No, not. My voice as her goes down quite a bit, and I think that's one of the things that I don't think I realized until I started. Actually, I had to go back and watch Clone Wars and realize that, I've actually got to keep my voice down at this other level, but then focus on how do I do that? Because that me talking down in that octave changes the way that my face moves. So things like that you don't think about when you're voicing a character, because it's not like I'm going to go play bitch pudding in a live action movie. Like,
you never know.
No, come on,
you never know.
You never know.
I think
it'd be hysterical, but like, it's not a concern of yours when you're in the recording booth. You just, you're just doing your thing.
Yeah, and this is kind of maybe a continuation of that. And this is actually a question from one of our supporters on Patreon, Zuzana, who wanted to ask this question on behalf of her friend Iveta, who had a Star Wars wedding and is a huge fan. She asked, was this live action version primarily, at least from a character persona standpoint, based on the Clone Wars version, or since you were moving to live action, were you trying to create a new spin on the character as a whole?
So that's such a good question. So in season 2, it was really just me paying homage to the character. I didn't want her to be too jarring for people who didn't know Clone Wars Rebels. But I wanted her to fit seamlessly into this world, but I also wanted her to look exactly the way that people wanted her to look. Going into season 3, when I realized how much of a greater role I was taking on this season, I wanted to step away from that and then create more of a character that I wanted to create, take more creative license and more ownership over her. Because when I was playing her voice, I was the least important person there, to be honest. It was everybody else's opinion and expertise comes before mine, and then they slot me in, and she is who they wanted her to be. And so in live action, season 2, season 3, that's just the biggest difference, is that I took more ownership over her and made more decisions myself.
And so in taking that ownership, kind of touching on some of the themes of the season in general, at least from our perspective, my perspective, it looks like a lot of the themes focused on like tradition, creed versus evolution and progression, and a kind of advancement. Was there anything in your life in particular that you were able to tap in from your personal experience that you could weave into like the character and making Bo weave into that overall kind of season theme?
Yeah, I think that there is so much that we can take from life that actually translates into this season. What makes a family? The family that you choose is oftentimes, more important to you than the family that you were given, for a lot of people. I think that atonement is such a huge thing. Forgiveness, moving through the mistakes that you've made and not allowing them to define who you're going to be moving forward. There's so many of those things that I think were important to this season. Bo is a character that when we first meet her, she is making terrible mistakes. She's put her faith in the wrong person. She's doing what she thinks is right for her people. Granted, she's got a tremendous ego that goes along with her. She's incredibly young. But she makes some really, really big mistakes. And those mistakes, sort of the culmination of those mistakes is, you know, the destruction of her people, but and also the death of her sister. How do you move past that? How do you move through something that you know, how do you make good on a life and you know, move through something like that? And I think for Bo, it becomes living a life of service after that, and trying to you know, seek forgiveness in herself for something that is unforgivable. And you could see that pain in her this season, and that was something that I liked. But like you said, there's so many of those themes in our own lives that we can add to this season. You know, there's so many spiritual and religious undertones to this season as well. You know, I think that it's important to acknowledge that well, the interpretation of text, if you will, with these different groups, you know, they've read the same thing, you know, they've read the same book. We just interpreted it differently. One group takes it as metaphor, the other takes it literally. There's so much of that in our own world, you know. There's, you know, wars are fought over a book, and the interpretation of it. We have fights in our daily lives that are raging in our political system right now because of interpretation of text. It's such a poignant sort of conversation and lesson, and I think it's, you know, those are all the sort of themes to the season for sure, and the Mandalorians in general.
When you're handed a character, or when you find out you're going to play a character, what are the things that you sort of need to figure out in order to properly portray said character? Do you have like a checklist?
Sometimes I think the biggest thing is understanding the assignment for me. Mm-hmm. You know, what am I trying to convey? Who's the audience? What's the end goal? Sometimes what's the, you know, what's the rating is a big thing, because it helps you figure out who your audience is.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? And then it's just trying to understand a character and figure out what makes them tick. You know, a lot of times, like for the Flash, the character is insane, so I don't really have to have anything make sense. She's crazy. She's
yeah.
And that becomes the justification for whatever you want to do, is that, well, she's insane. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to make sense that a woman who is from Clearwater, Florida has a fake British accent. It doesn't have to make sense. She's crazy. It actually makes more sense because,
Yeah. I would say, is that freeing? Like when you just like someone who's crazy, is that like a freeing opportunity? Just like, hey, everything's on the board.
I love that shit. I love it. I love when so your character's nuts. You can just do whatever you want. That's so fun as an actor, because I think that it's, you know, I think we, especially as an adult, you get handed these characters, and as adults, we become more inhibited as we get older. And I think one of the freeing things that happens when you play a character that's arguably insane is that you get to sort of attack them with this like childlike glee of being uninhibited and just doing whatever you want to do, and just look like a dumbass because nobody cares. You're not portraying a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've mentioned, you know, like dialogue in sci-fi is certainly very unique, but what are some of the other unique challenges in portraying a character in the realm of science fiction?
Oh my gosh. Like for me, I always want the characters to be slightly relatable, you know, like it's, you know, even if you're playing an alien and you're covered in green makeup and the character doesn't exist in our reality, I want them to be identifiable and relatable in their emotional like box. Mm-hmm. I never want to do, unless they're crazy. Take the crazy out of it. You know, if you're playing a character who is of sound mind and body, it doesn't matter what they are. I want them to be relatable in their emotional journey. And so I think that's sometimes the hardest thing for people in sci-fi is that, you know, sci-fi is just the setting. It might as well just be a Western. It's literally just the backdrop to a soap opera. And so you know, trying to just make those characters relatable and get out of your own way is really important.
So with that in mind, is there anything appealing about the sci-fi genre because maybe it's you know, it's just the backdrop, or is there anything unique about that you enjoy, you know, being a part of that genre in particular?
Yeah, you know, I love seeing women kick ass. I think it's a really, really fun thing to watch, because I think that strong women, if portrayed correctly, have an intense vulnerability that almost makes them stronger in my mind. And so I think that there are things in sci-fi that you can get away with doing that you don't have to justify in reality. You know what I mean? Men are largely, just because of physical makeup, stronger than women. You know, not in some respects, no, of course not, right? But as a blanket statement and a generalization, men are physically stronger than women. But I love science fiction and action because it takes that element out of it to a certain extent. You know, it sort of almost levels the playing field. And I like that. I think it's fun to watch. And, you know, anytime I can take a character like myself in science fiction, a female character, and make them a little bit more sly and a little bit smarter in their fighting, to compensate for that physical difference, I love that too, because that's just me sort of adding a little bit more of the feminine energy to these masculine, you know, otherwise masculine characters.
Well, along those lines, I feel like sci-fi has always sort of pushed that envelope and always done a very good job of being ahead of the curve as far as introducing, you know, strong female characters. And you have been part of that for like the past 20 years. You know, you mentioned Starbuck, a traditional male character. And I mean, I remember the backlash from that decision and, you know, you having to deal with that. But what has it been like for you to, you know, kind of be part of that movement?
It's so strange, because I don't think I realized I was, until people started sort of pointing it out to me. I think it's important. Representation is always important, you know, across the board. It's important for little kids growing up to be able to see themselves on screen is very, very, very important. When I was growing up, women were portrayed in very, very different ways. And granted, not every woman can be a superhero or physically capable. You have to, you know, we're creating art and we're creating characters. Not every woman in the world is, you know, morally sound. So why would we ever portray women as being these, like, you know, perfect creatures? Because we're obviously not. You know, tell that to the woman down the street who's, you know, beating the crap out of her kids. That needs to be portrayed too. You know what I mean? But I didn't see physically strong, capable women when I was growing up, enough, in my opinion. And so when I first got the opportunity to play a character that was, God, it made me happy. It made me so happy, because I'm a tomboy. You know, I grew up running around with the boys, getting dirty, scraping my knees, getting back up, you know, being told to suck it up, being told all of these things. Like, I was raised to be tough. And then I got to this industry and it was like, no, you wear dresses, you stand in the corner because you're cute and you're blonde, and you also have to pretend you're stupid. And I was like, shit, like this is not, like, can I do anything? Can I do anything? No, you just stand there. You look cute. You get to be misunderstood, and you get to be angsty, and you get to be dumb, and you get to, be the character that people cheer for when your head gets cut off. Like, that was not me. And so when I got the opportunity to push against that, I pushed really hard. Because I was trying to pave the way for myself to be able to do it more. Because I was bored. So
this is going to,
it is.
so this is a purely self-indulgent question, and I want to ask this just because it was one of my favorite episodes of Battlestar. It was the unfinished business episode, and the scene where you and Jamie Bamber have to box each other, which I was like, they're actually going to do this.
Yeah.
And there are a couple shots of you in there where I felt like that's the first time I ever saw Starbuck like truly upset and broken, but she kept fighting.
Yeah.
What was having to shoot that scene and portray all those emotions? What was that like for you?
So, I mean, even just thinking about it sort of almost brings tears to my eyes, because I'm so proud of that episode and that scene in particular. I've played so many characters before and after that where you're like, well, the man can't hit the woman. Okay, well, why? She just hit him 10 times. Why can't he hit her back? Well, because men can't hit women. Okay, well, now we're generalizing again. Like, what's the context? What are we trying to create? What are we actually saying? And I loved the fact that you stripped away these two characters and you just made them these two emotional, complex people having a fight. And they loved each other, which made the fight more brutal. And I also love the fact that I went to the stunt coordinators ahead of time and I said, I want her to cheat. He's physically so much bigger than Starbuck. She cannot beat him. She has to cheat in order to level the playing field. And so that's why we have her, sweep the leg and kick him in the face. Like, she had to. You can't, she's not going to beat him boxing. Come on. He's so much bigger than her. But it's just that raw emotion between these two people. And I love that thing about her. And I love that, about the characters that I've played when given the opportunity, that don't quit thing, that resilience to get back up and keep going. That's the great separator in people. That's the biggest thing. That is the people who win and people who don't, is that resiliency to get up and keep going. If I could teach my daughter how to be resilient, it's the most important thing we'll ever be able to teach her in her life. Because then she can do anything, because she's not going to quit. And so that's what I loved about Starbuck, is she just doesn't stop. And that's, I loved that about her.
God, that scene at the end of that episode where the two of you are in the middle of the ring and everyone is just sort of filed out, and that one got me. The whole I missed you thing. And well done.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how to follow that.
It is such a good episode.
It's such good writing. And I think that sometimes in sci-fi, we forget that the story is always going to be the most important thing. Good acting can't make a bad script good. You might have moments, but if the story's not there, you can't save it, and Battlestar was, phenomenal writing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is going to be a bit of an awkward segue, but like kind of touching on the things that make the show good, because we were talking about this before, and Sean was trying to explain it to me, and I didn't quite fully understand it. But this thing called the volume.
Yeah.
What is the volume? Because this is where Sean gets a little bit more inside.
So cool.
Than than I do. So I was kind of curious and fascinated to hear about it because it is an aspect of the storytelling.
It is. It is one of the coolest things that I've ever. It's one of the big. I mean, it's a tool basically. And if I'm not doing this justice, you just need to go watch the making of. I think it's on Disney Plus. You could watch the making of the Mandalorian, and they'll talk about the volume, and I think you get to see it. But basically, what the volume is, and what Mando does, and then other shows have started doing this as well. I think. I'm not going to say Mando was the first. I don't know. I don't want to say that. But so what it is they do all the previs. And for people, that's the pre-visuals. Like, so normally in a sci-fi, you shoot on a green screen, you act it, you use your imagination. There's nothing in the background unless it's a set that you can touch physically, but nothing else is there. And they do that in post. They go back, they take the green screen, and with that green screen gives them the technology to, put you in front of a McDonald's or put you in Naboo. Like like you could literally change it and do whatever you want. So on our show, it's literally a 360 degree, I'm literally doing math in my head now. Wait a second. Is it 365? No, that's days in a year. Stop it, Kate. Yep. So it's completely enclosed circle, if you will. And it is all computer screens, and it is floor to ceiling, and it is probably 25, 30 feet tall. And it is massive. It's the size of, I don't know, it's like, it's on big stages, so they're huge. Like, you could probably fit an entire 4,000 square foot house in the middle of it. So it's very big. And then they put the sets inside of it. But what that does is they do all the pre-visuals. So they're doing all of the special effects, all of the locations, all of the ships and the aliens in the background. Everything in the background is pre-done. So instead of a green screen, you are encapsulated by TVs that have everything already there. So when you're working, you're not using your imagination. You are literally standing on the Razor Crest, having a conversation, and you are seeing it's as if you're standing on the ship on the water, because you're seeing the waves, you're seeing the horizon, you're seeing the shipping yard, you're seeing the Gazanti freighter, you're seeing people moving in the background, because all of that previs is done ahead of time, so much so that you get seasick because you're literally, it is the craziest experience that I've ever had in my entire life. It's so weird. Wow. It's so neat. It's so neat. Yeah.
How does that make your job easier?
It makes it so much easier because you don't have to use your imagination anymore. Yeah. You don't have, I am so good at acting with tennis balls. Because where's the alien? That tennis ball in the distance. And so for this, you don't have to do that. They're literally in the background, like doing things. It is so strange. It is so strange. Yeah.
So let's talk about doing your own stunts. And you mentioned the knee slide, and I want to get the story behind that. But how many did you do, and what was your favorite?
How many stunts did I do, or how many knee slides?
A little bit
both,
of both,
I guess. Yeah.
Both of them.
So, Star Wars, this show is very, very different. It's such a big, huge moving thing, and they don't want their actors getting hurt. So I am not legally allowed to do a lot of things. Which makes life really, really sad for myself. But I still get to do everything once, and so I'll do the fight, I'll do the running, I'll do the dives, I'll do everything. They just want me to do it softly, which is what they say. 50%, Katie, just give it 50%. Let the girls do it. Just do 50%. And I'm always like, 50% coming up. Here's your 50%. I'm like, they're like, damn it, Katie, not 95%. I'm like, well, did it look good? It looked great. Yeah. Damn it.
again.
So there's a lot of them that I will do, but you know, that knee slide though was one of those ones where it was inside of a fight. And the helmet was off. So it was like, you're going to do it. And if you're going to do it, you're going to make it look good. And, you know, I told them, I was like, I have been practicing knee slides since I was 5 years old on my mom's kitchen floor. Like, come on, guys. Like, this is the one thing I am real good at. It's like knee slides, especially when they wax the floor, which is really fun. So you just
I was curious
fly.
about that. Yeah.
Oh my
Nice.
God. It is the coolest thing ever. They've got this wax that's like sprinkled, like it looks like they're putting powder on the floor or like sugar, and it's wax. And you hit that shit, you're gone. You're gone. You're off the stage. Like you gotta actively stop yourself because you fly so far. It's so much fun. So much fun. But I did it so many times that like the knees on my suit busted out. I was, you know, covered in bruises when I went home that night. And my poor husband was like, "What did you do today?" And I was like, "It was awesome." Yeah. So
we have to, I know you're probably sick and tired about talking about Grogu, but we got to ask you, like, do you ever forget that little thing is a puppet and not like an actual sentient being that you're acting with?
all the time, because it is to a certain extent, because there's, you know, like 5 guys that control Grogu at any given time, and they've all got headsets on and they're listening to the scene because they need to know when to react as him. And so he is there, you know, he really is there. The puppeteers are just masterful, and he reacts when he's supposed to react. It's like working with a child or a dog. It's like I have legitimate emotional reactions to him while we're filming. It's so fun.
This seems
I
like
love him.
With 5 people operating, it seems like there's an opportunity for some shenanigans. Does any of that happen? Did anyone mess around with Grogu? And I don't know. I feel like there's a way to play some pranks, maybe keep it lighthearted on set.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure. God, he's probably worth more than I am. Like, he's probably more life insurance on Grogu than for me. But no, we definitely joke around. Like, you know, I think one of my first days, like everyone always makes fun of me because like between takes, they'll look over and I'm talking to him and like having full conversations with Grogu. And the puppeteers have learned now with me that they leave their headsets on and they just keep reacting because I'm like over having conversations by myself. I think they feel bad for me. So there are times I'm just lonely on set.
Oh man.
So a lot of the roles that you've had have involved some sort of physical preparation, whether it be, you know, you gotta go train or, you know, put on muscle or whatever. What was the physical preparation, if any, to play Bo Katan?
Yeah. So for Bo, it's very different, right? Because I don't have to worry about the visual aesthetics of my body, if for lack of a better explanation. You don't see any skin, you know, it's just like just my face is, I think, the only thing showing when my helmet is off. So what it becomes at that point is it becomes being physically prepared for the workday and what it requires. The suit is heavy, and you're in it all day long, and the way that it hooks onto your body is really constraining, and it like pulls your shoulders down, then pulls you back at a really weird angle. So your shoulder blades, it's almost like you're walking with a posture corrector, and with a sweatshirt on that has like bungee cords attached to it, strapped under the bottom of your feet. So not only are your shoulders back, but your whole weight of your body is being pulled to the ground. So it's really strange to be in it for 16 hours a day for 6 months straight. So it becomes, is your back strong? Are your glutes strong? Are you stretched out? Are you, you know, so it's things like that where I'm constantly, you know, doing like lots of load bearing stuff at the gym to make sure my legs are strong, my back is strong, that I'm, you know, that everything is, you know, I do my go wads.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah.
That I'm Yeah, because I have to make sure that I'm completely stretched out because I'm standing on cement all day long, in uncomfortable shoes as well.
Wh-
So it's just very, very different. And then when it's over, it goes back to my regular type of working out. But nothing prepares you for carrying around a 25-pound bowling ball on one hip for the rest of your life. Like
Yep. You get really good at just that static locking it in.
oh my God, it is the weirdest thing. I feel like every mother in the world, I don't care how strong you are, you need to invest in a tush baby. Cause it is weird carrying something and then also trying to like not cock your hip out because I'm consciously aware that my mom's like, you ruined my body. My hips were never the same. And, trying to carry her. So I'm constantly holding her and trying to put all of the weight in my arm. And then on this arm, I'm trying to switch her. And then it's like, well, now my shoulders hurt all the time. And like, why are my bicep tendons acting up? And it's like, well, you can't carry 25 pounds like this all day long. So yeah, thankfully she walks now. So it's changed a little bit.
You mentioned Gowad and that routine. Gowad's a big player in the CrossFit space in particular.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned the load bearing training. Was there anything in there that like you really took to as far as like, hey, like I loved, barbell squats or lunging or any of these things that you started to relish as you prepared for this role?
So I love heavy carries. It's one of my favorite things. And I think it actually, whether you're doing CrossFit or is, some sort of like OCRs or if you're just, preparing yourself to carry a child over, for an extended amount of time, I love heavy carries. And we're doing our landscaping right now and God, I just like throw huge bags of sod on my shoulders and I just love it. I love that feeling of carrying something that is heavier than you think you should be capable of doing and then walking with it. And then it's like superhuman to be able to do that. So I love farmer carries. I love all that crazy stuff where I'm like picking up something that I shouldn't be able to, carry for a long period of time and then actually like adding it into my workout. I think it's good. And it raises my heart rate a lot as well, which is nice. So I can get the cardio in without having to go get on a machine for long periods of time.
That's big.
Yeah.
Some people may not know that you actually dealt with thyroid cancer. I think it was right after Battlestar, 2009, I think. How did that whole ordeal affect the way that you viewed fitness kind of coming out of that experience?
Yeah. So it's such a weird thing for I think I was 27 and being told that you have cancer is a really strange emotional thing to sort of go through. But then sort of having this weird survivor's guilt that came out of it because I knew that my cancer was not necessarily life-threatening in the frame that it was, but that it would be forever life-changing. You take a person's thyroid out, the engine's gone, and you are, on medicine for the rest of your life. And I think that it taught me a lot of things, when something so simple as being your own medical advocate is the most important thing that you can do. I think that putting trust in your doctor or a doctor blindly is not necessarily the best thing that you can do. So for me, I had to trust myself, trust my own voice, fight for the things that I wanted to fight for, and with my care in particular, because the proper levels for thyroid, I believe, and this might be me talking out of school, but I believe that the levels were created off of a 40-year-old man. So now you're associating that to a 27-year-old woman. Well, my levels I feel different. My hormones are different. I'm not this person. So I feel fine at this level. You're telling me that I shouldn't feel fine. I feel great. Why are we messing with that? Things like that, where I had to learn to speak my own mind and learn to fight back, and were really important for me at the time. As far as, my own physical health, I think that when I say survivor's guilt, I was going to the hospital, seeing sick people daily whose prognosis was not as good as mine. And so I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop when I got better, like sort of like, this should have been harder, is something else going to happen? Like it was a really sort of emotionally weird thing to go through. But I really had to, take my health and my own well-being into my own hands at that point. That was the most important thing. And then I realized that healthy people don't go in message boards. So the biggest advice that somebody gave to me when they took my thyroid out, I went to the doctor and I was like, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have all of these side effects, and they're all because of my thyroid, because I don't have a thyroid. And my doctor was like, yeah, I'm going to tell you what those are all from. And he was like, you're exhausted because you work 16 hours a day. You're not sleeping because your 16 hours a day is constantly different every single day. You're gaining weight because you don't work out and you eat like shit. Your libido is low because of all those other things we already talked about. Like, all of these things have another explanation, but the easiest thing to do is to blame your thyroid because you don't have one. Maybe you should change your life first, and then if your thyroid is still causing a problem, it'll actually be evident to us. And then he said, get out of the damn message boards. Happy people do not go in chat forums. And I was like, oh, got it. Because I was going to read, what's life going to be like without a thyroid? Mm-hmm. Everybody's miserable. That's terrifying. So, instead of Googling that, it's like, happy people without a thyroid, like, healthy without a thyroid. Like, I had to change the way that I sort of like looked for all of those things, but that became the biggest thing. So I prioritized sleep. I prioritized being hydrated. I prioritized eating and being physically active. And all of a sudden I realized my thyroid was fine. My thyroid was, and I don't have one, but my levels were fine. And it was all a mindset. It was all shifting the things that I was using as an excuse. And, thankfully I learned that really young. 27 is really young. So my levels have always been great. And that is the rarity,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that message, I know, certainly resonates with our listener base, because we do come from, the health and fitness industry, and, talking about taking your own health and well-being into your own hands. We've seen glimpses of your home gym and, taking the fitness aspect, into your own hands at your own house. What is your setup like in your garage? There's a significant portion of the CrossFit, community that does, obsesses over home gyms and having that set up so that you can have the fitness at your disposal when you want it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. My poor husband, because it's actually filled with Star Wars memorabilia right now. He's like, can we please get the gym back? So that's actually, as soon as we get off, it's on my list. It's on my list of things to start doing today. I need to get everything out of there. So we have, we have everything that you could possibly imagine, actually. We got our floor. I was watching Brooks Lake. I was and watching him put down his floor in his gym at his house, and I was like, I reached out to my husband. I was like, we need this flooring. So we got that flooring. Is it called Play? I think it's called Play, which is amazing. And then we just started building it out. We've got some cardio equipment, but primarily it's, we have the rack, and we've got the bars, and we have like, you know, weights that go up obscenely high, you know, and the barbells, and we've got the kettlebells, and we've got like so many, you know, medicine balls, and like, oh my God, we have, it's, you know, I think we did what everyone did during COVID, which was, we were like the first people, you know, it was such a huge thing for us. And I saw what was happening because we were on set and everything was shutting down. And the first call I made was to the gym, you know, the fitness store. And I was like, I'll take whatever you have left. And I drove over there and like shoved everything in the back of the car because we were up in Canada working. And that was the start of it. So then we came back with all of that back to Los Angeles and just started building it out even more. But I think the thing that we learned during COVID, though, that is really important is you don't need everything. You know, I think that is one of the most important things for people to realize is that, you know, is especially if your goal is just to be physically fit. I know that if you're competing and you're in, you know, in CrossFit, it's a completely different demon. But if your goal is just health and fitness at home, you don't need anything, you know. You need, I think we had like the weights that are the changeable ones. Those are the ones that they had left. And so we started with that. I started with some sliding pads, those like, so I could do, you know, tons of slide work and things like that. And we had a jump rope. That's pretty much, and I think we had like one really, really heavy kettlebell. And that's what we started with. And it just obviously got bigger once we got back to Los Angeles. But there's, and I think maybe a set of, I think I had a set of bands. That was it when I was filming Another Life. But I think everyone started realizing how important it is to have, you know, everything at their home, because you never know what's going to happen at the gym. Sometimes you go to the gym and you can't even get on a piece of equipment. It's awful.
So with limited time, because you're so busy, what are some of your like go-to workouts or movements, routines that you do in order to, you know, get the most out of your time that you have to focus on fitness?
Yeah, I love hill running. I'm like a crazy person though. You know, my husband would used to get really upset when we trained there's a CrossFit gym that we would train at, because I love feeling like I'm going to throw up during a workout. It's a weird, I don't know. I'm like, I think that I was dropped on my head as a child or something, but, there's this thing that kicks in with me that if I don't feel like I'm going to pass out or throw up, that I'm not working hard enough. And so I get to that point and I can push through that. And my husband would be like throwing up and I'll be like, I'll just wait for you at the top. And he would just get so like, what is wrong with you? This is like, nobody works out like this. So I love hill running. I love jumping rope. I love, you know, the battle ropes. Anything that hurts it like really fast in a short amount of time is something that I love to do, because I have limited amount of time that I can work out with the daughter. So it's making the most use of small amounts of time. So getting heart rate up really fast during the workout so I don't have to do cardio, and then also lifting. You know, I say lifting heavy. Your audience is probably like, that's not heavy.
It's all relative.
It's relative, yeah.
So for me, physically, I like to lift heavy for myself, and get the most out of shorter workouts.
In terms of like time duration, like you just mentioned, and, you know, some of the odd object stuff, you mentioned the 25-pound, you know, cannonball on your hip. Is there any other ways that you've shifted your approach to fitness since becoming a mom?
So I think the biggest thing that I've shifted actually since becoming a mom, but also just getting older as a woman, is that I am doing a lot more hip thrusting, a lot more squats, a lot like I said, like load bearing lower body exercises. Because as I get older, it's now I'm shifting what's important, right? Like, yes, aesthetically, I want my ass to be back where it was when I was 25, and the only way to do that is put muscle on. So I've got to do that. But also, as you start to get older as a woman, osteoporosis becomes something that is a legitimate concern. And there's been studies done that lifting heavy in your life will actually, can reduce your risks for osteoporosis as you get older. So things like that become important. So my lower body is the strongest part of my body. I'm going to continue to lift heavy as long as I can, because that will reduce my risks of, potentially a fall risk as I get older, if I can keep that up. So it shifts, right? Like the older you get, your priorities change.
Are there any fitness goals or anything like milestones you're pursuing, or is it just like, I just got to get in, stay healthy, make sure I can, pick up and play with my daughter, and I'm good to go?
I think that's it. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, I don't know if we talked about this the last time, but I was diagnosed with hip dysplasia, which is such a depressing thing for a runner. And I think the doctor said, and I found a phenomenal surgeon, and he basically said, if you were a professional athlete, we would do the surgery. You're not. So it becomes management and then trying to figure out what the best course of action is. So he said, you can't run anymore for exercise. You can run from bears and you can run playing with your daughter, and that's it. And that was really hard for me. Like shed tears over that, because running is my therapy. And so I've had to try to find different sorts of cardio that get my heart rate up that I can do outside. So like spinning and things like that. Hill running is great because my stride isn't as big. So it's not as painful on my hips, and I'm not moving as quickly. So I find that it's actually easier. That sucked. That changed things a lot. So I did the PRP injections, which actually helped quite a bit into my left hip. And so, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But it's getting old is not, what does my mom say? Not for pussies.
It's a fact.
Yeah. This is another question from one of our patrons, from Taylor Nelson. It kind of relates to the fitness aspect with the Sci-Fi. He asked, what CrossFit or training movements could Din Djarin and Paz Vizsla could have done to make wielding the dark saber a little bit easier, or at least wield it the way Bo Katan did?
So I think what it comes down to is that I think for this and for this story, the rightful owner of the saber will have an easier time controlling the saber, because I think Paz and Din tried to control it instead of allow it to become a part of you. So yeah, so that's why it's so light for her, and she's so capable with it, is that she just becomes one with the dark saber.
It's very meditative, very zen.
Right.
You're involved in some charitable organizations. What are they? Where can people find out about them, and what do you have kind of on the horizon with them?
Yeah. So my big thing, obviously, now since becoming a mom, and our daughter has been in and out of Children's Hospital for some health stuff over the last little bit, and she's going to be okay. But it was not fun for anyone involved, and so my husband saw firsthand, and I saw firsthand, how amazing Children's Hospital Los Angeles is. And so I'm getting ready to do a campaign with them soon. And also I'm doing a Voices Against Cancer, which is an organization in Sioux Falls. We're doing a convention where everyone is waiving their fees and giving the money to to fight childhood cancer. So that also is really important to me. And then there's a charity up in Washington that I participate in. That's usually a motorcycle ride, that it's shifted this year, called Whiskers and Wheels, that we raise money for the Seattle Humane Society. So, so there's a few sort of around, but, if you want to know more about them, that it's usually on my website. So just kateesackhoff.com or my social media.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have one more question from one of our patrons. We submitted a list for a few. This one's from Sean P. This one's from Sean P. Kane. He says, "How does it feel to be flying again, and how is it different than flying as Starbuck?" I assume that was because you were a pilot, and now you get to.
I am sitting you down and you're watching this show. Like, that's just all I'm saying.
I've seen episodes.
So which show haven't you seen? You've not seen Battlestar.
He has not.
I've seen parts of Battlestar. I would watch it with someone with some cousins, but it wasn't like a regular thing. Right.
Which is funny. I am a terrible flyer, by the way. I hate flying. I usually take half a Xanax for long flights. Short flights, I'm seemingly oddly okay with. But so I think that's the irony of playing a pilot. I don't know. So I don't know why I'm so good at conveying something that I'm so scared of. But I'm also convinced that if I was ever on a plane where they were like, "Is there a pilot on board?" I think I would raise my hand and be like, "I actually got this. Like, I've got this. I've got some hours in the simulator. I could handle this."
Oh man, I feel like that is one of the biggest over confidence points for people. I think there's like, if you polled most people and asked like, "Hey, if someone needed to land a plane and you'd never done it before, could you?" I feel like there's like an overwhelming majority of people that think they could do it. Whether
I know.
you played, yeah.
I don't know what it is that if everybody's played video games, we're like, how hard is it? It's the little line. You just keep it on the horizon, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know. My brother's a pilot, and like it, I don't know. It always looks so weird, especially those small planes, because there's lots of levers and like, I don't know. I mean, isn't it true that like big planes just sort of fly themselves anyway?
More or less.
That's what I think.
I don't know. I know, just no disrespect for to the pilots. Like, holy Hannah, like, trust me, I don't want to be on a plane with an AI.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather some human error be involved.
Amen. What do you have coming up now that this whole Mandalorian thing is, for the time being, behind you?
Yeah. I think really just trying to figure out what I want to do next, things are different when you have kids, I really didn't anticipate that. I sort of thought, yeah, you have a baby, you just take them with you everywhere, and I knew that I would love, my child. I knew that I would love her unconditionally. I don't think I actually knew what unconditional love was, though, until I had a child. And then all of a sudden I realized how ignorant it was to think I knew what unconditional love was. And so priorities have just shifted. Like, I don't want to go back to work every day. My daughter was born while we were filming this last season. I saw firsthand what it's like to go back to work when your baby is tiny. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be away from her. I mean, I like being away from her so I can get some sleep. Like, I'm glad she sleeps through the night. I love my daughter. I don't want to be like attached to her at all times. But I don't want to be away from her. So I'm trying to figure out what that happy medium is and what I want my career to look like moving forward. Because I'm only going to get this time once, she's going to be leaving me before I know it. And then I can be back to being selfish and doing what's best for me and things like that. So I don't know. I have no idea. I've turned so many things down. because I just don't, nothing's come my way where I go, oh, this is worth being away from my daughter 16 hours a day for the next 4 months.
So along those lines, and then we'll wrap this up, but is there something that you're like, I just wish someone would come to me with this and I would do it in a heartbeat?
Oh my God. I would love to play a villain in like a DC or a Marvel movie.
Oh.
I would love
That's your
it.
world.
I don't want to be the hero. They're boring. I just want to, I want to be bad again. Being good's overrated.
Interesting. Now you got the wheels turning
Tommy's
a little bit.
Big Marvel honk. So.
Yeah.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big
huge.
Marvel person for sure. And so that
Yeah.
just put my head into a tailspin. So trying to think of
Yeah.
what would be a good one. But yeah, I like that. I like that. You want to have a little edge to you, a little grit. You don't just want to be the good person the whole time.
No, it's so boring. It's so boring. Always doing the right thing.
Well, Katee,
I can do
cannot
that
thank you
for
enough. Yeah, exactly. You need to as a mom. We just can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations not only on your success professionally, but on becoming a mother. I'm going to make sure my wife watches this, because hearing you say the same things about guilt being away, I know a lot of women feel that way, and I'm glad you voiced that. But all the best to you and Robin and your daughter, and I can't wait to see it back on maybe the big screen as Bo Katan.
Aw, thanks, guys. It's always good to talk to you. Maybe next time I'll actually have another OCR to talk about or something.
Yes. Well, as long as you say there's a next time, then we're good with that.
Yep.
Yeah. Have a good one.